right, so what do we do with Shane Baz? Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Thursday, May 8th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, Dylan Cease is trending up. Let's hope he's healthy. Shane Baz trending down. We have sell-high candidates, injury updates, and much more. Let's jump in.
Holy Toledo! The element of surprise reigns supreme.
All right, I hate to start on a bad note, but Chris, talk to us about Shane Baz.
Yeah, oh my goodness gracious, can apply to a bad performance as well. And in Shane Baz's case, it's two really, really bad performances in a row after he looked
and
like
3 of 4.
Yeah, and after he looked like one of the preeminent breakouts of the entire season. And I wish I could say I was surprised, but I'm actually not, because, I wrote a piece about him last week. It was 3 1/3 innings, 6 earned runs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. Tough matchup against the Phillies, but again, two bad starts in a row, 3 out of the last 4. And I wrote about him last week, and my main takeaway was he's just, the early season strikeouts were not sustainable because he was pitching way too much in the strike zone without getting whiffs in the strike zone, and he wasn't getting chases on pitches out of the strike zone. And, well, you look at today, 61% of his pitches were in the strike zone. The Phillies hitters swung at 75% of those pitches and made contact on 92% of those swings. That's just not going to cut it unless you're really, really good at generating weak contact. And that's a skill set that Shane Baz has shown over the last 2 seasons, but we're talking about a relatively small sample size, and that's still not going to generate strikeouts. And strikeouts have dried up lately. It's 4 over the last 2 starts. I think it's 3 or fewer in 3 of the last 4. I'm not giving up on Shane Baz. I'm not saying you should drop him, but clearly you missed the sell high window. And I do think he very much was a sell high candidate in a way that I'm not sure I feel about Max Meyer. I'm interested to see what you guys think about that comparison, but Max Meyer's early season success has felt more sustainable than Shane Baz's. And Shane Baz I still think he's super talented. Obviously, he's averaging 97 miles per hour with his 4-seamer. Big time prospect, but he needs something else, whether it's throw the 4-seamer above the zone more often, or bury the curveball and change up a little more often, or work on getting that slider back. That was the thing that we were talking about last season. He lost the slider after Tommy John surgery. I was hoping a year further removed from the injury, he'd be a little more comfortable throwing it, but that's not what we've seen. He threw it 4 times today. I would like to see Shane Baz come out in the next start and throw that pitch more and just see what happens, because this current approach doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, so you kind of brought up a few points there. I'm not sure which one to address first, but I would just point to first 3 starts. 2 of them, he had double-digit strikeouts. You don't see that very often, except from very talented pitchers. And so I will say, in a way, the way I feel vindicated by this is going to be kind of funny, because I did a stupid thing, and that's why I feel vindicated. It was like the clearest small sample example of me elevating a player, a non-elite player, into elite territory. Like I did that with Baz after he had 2 double-digit strikeout efforts in his first 3 starts, and it's come back to bite me, as it usually does when you do that, when you overreact to a small sample like that. Now, my reasoning at the time was, 2 double-digit strikeout efforts in his first 3 starts.
Top prospect. Like, this was the top prospect in baseball.
Well, and I was concerned about the slider. I had been concerned about the slider. I was fading Shane Baz pretty hard prior to the season because of that. But that curveball seemed like a world beater at the time. It seemed like it had effectively taken the place of the slider, was doing what the slider had done earlier in his career prior to Tommy John surgery, and it would be enough. but in recent starts, it obviously hasn't been. And he seems to be searching because the characteristics of that curveball were way different in this start. It was up 1.3 miles per hour. It had 4 fewer inches of vertical break. So it was a harder, straighter curveball, which, I mean, maybe he just lost the feel for that pitch at some point and he's trying to regain it, or maybe he's realizes it's not working like it was at the start of the year. And so he's just trying different things. I'm encouraged that he's trying different things. If that's the case, I'm encouraged that like the Rays are really good at diagnostics. They're a good diagnostic organization. And I think Shane Baz is absolutely worth holding on to. The thought did occur to me. He has a couple of options left, and Joe Boyle is blowing up at AAA. Is there a chance they
blowing up in a good way?
Yeah, in a good way. He's thrown like 70% of his pitches. No, not that many. 65% of his pitches for strikes over his last 4 starts, majors included, which is great for Joe Boyle. Like, is there a chance they'd option Baz to help and give him a chance to figure it out in the minors, get Boyle a shot? Obviously, wouldn't be a long-term situation, but the thought did occur to me.
I don't think it's completely crazy, but I would bet against that happening.
Me too.
Still 96% rostered. You know, I tweeted.
I'm not saying drop him, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, both of you guys
you said just the opposite.
Reiterated to hold on to him, but that was the question I kept getting: is can I drop this guy? So the answer is no. But that was after I tweeted his last 4 starts. The collective numbers here: 8.38 ERA and a 1.81 WHIP for Shane Baz. He is 72% started on CBS, and it looks like he might be in line for 2 starts next week at the Blue Jays and at the Marlins.
I'm probably starting him.
Me too.
Yep.
But I don't feel great about it. No. Now, where did you guys fall on the Baz versus Meyer question?
Oh yeah, that was the other thing. So I nobody was moving Meyer into their top 20 at any point, like people were doing with Baz. So
no, but I had
think
never,
as a sell high comparison, there is any comparison.
I had never moved Baz that high.
You hadn't?
No. For me,
but
before their most recent, I update my rankings every Thursday. That's my policy. I'll do minor adjustments, but I want to do just one big one every Thursday and really dive into it. And my most recent one, Baz was 38, Meyer was 42. So they're already pretty close for me.
Yeah,
they've gotten a lot closer. I'm not sure if it was top 20. It was at least top 24 for Baz with me.
Yeah, and I did an update here on Wednesday. I moved Baz into the mid-30s, but after the start, I moved him back down a little bit to 42. So that's right behind Robbie Ray. It is still ahead of Max Meyer, who I have at 49, but they're both top 50 starting pitchers. I just think, obviously, the team context is just so much better for Shane Baz. But Meyer has a much better elite pitch. Like, his sweeper is better than anything
slider,
that Shane Baz has. The slider is better than anything that Shane Baz has if he can get that curveball and that changeup back on track here. Someone who is trending up, let's talk about Dylan Cease, who had his best start of the season. He took a no-hitter into the 7th inning at the Yankees. 6 2/3, 1 hit, 1 run, 9 strikeouts, 20 whiffs on 86 pitches, 14 of those coming on the slider. His velocity was up in this one. Fastball averaged 97.8 miles per hour. And then he left with a trainer due to a forearm cramp. So you think forearm, all right, that's a little scary. Cramp, not the worst thing that could happen. It's not a strain. Apparently he has passed all tests. He told reporters.
With flying colors, Frank.
With flying colors. He told all reporters afterwards that he expects to make his next start. It's still a little worrisome because, velocity being up and there was a forearm thing here. But this was the best by far that Dylan Cease has looked all season.
Yeah, and man, if Dylan Cease gets hurt after George Kirby and Logan Gilbert got hurt, and we can never use the word safe. And Corbin Burns, and Corbin Burns, we're just done with he has no injury history, so we're just done with that, I guess. But no, it doesn't sound like it's serious. It's concerning just because anything that happens to a pitcher is concerning. Like if he sleeps the wrong way, it's concerning because the margins for error tend to be relatively small. But I always had faith that Dylan Cease was going to get back to this. You know, like this is Dylan Cease is the right-handed Blake Snell, except he doesn't get hurt and Blake Snell does. But other than that, they're basically the same guy. They're maddeningly inconsistent, but they always turn it around at some point. And I was very confident Dylan Cease was going to do that.
And it seemed pretty obvious at the time. I think it was last week we gave out Chris Sale and Dylan Cease as buy low candidates. And what do you know? They're not buy low candidates anymore. So you had your chance. It's gone now.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe for Cease. I mean, if Cease turns around and gives up 4 runs next time, I think he's probably back to being a buy low candidate.
And I would still buy.
Sale has had like 3 good starts in a row, so maybe less so for him.
Yeah.
All right, Scott, let's go over to you, your player of the night, TJ Friedl, somebody I know you like quite a bit.
I do like Friedl quite a bit. I had him as a sleeper coming into the year, and the basic argument was, okay, 2 years ago, 2023. Well, first let me say what TJ Friedl did today. He had 2 home runs in Atlanta. It was the 2nd and 3rd home runs of the year. He's been the Reds' leadoff hitter all season long, has gotten on base at a pretty good clip, has stolen bases at a really good clip, like nearly a 40 steal pace for Friedl. So Francona's letting him run. And that's good to see, because last year Friedl missed a lot of time with a lot of injuries, but a hamstring being chief among them. And he was less prolific of a base stealer because of it. But what he did do in 2024 was hit for power still, 13 home runs in his 85 games. And the reason that was notable is because that was the most dubious part of TJ Friedl's 2023 breakthrough. So 2023, TJ Friedl, he's a top, I looked in points leagues. He was the 23rd best outfielder in fantasy that year, 3.09 points per game, must start basically. 18 homers, 27 steals, hit 279, hit leadoff most of the year. Big breakout. The most dubious part of that was the 18 home runs, because it's sort of like Isaac Paredes. He's one of he makes some of the weakest contact in all of baseball. So would that power translate? Well, last year, in between all the injuries, the fact he had 13 homers in 85 games, I think verified that is a legitimate part of Friedl's skill set in spite of the low exit velocities. So it was just a matter of keeping him healthy, getting him running again, which clearly he's doing. And I thought he could get back to those 2023 numbers where he's a must-start outfielder in fantasy. The power hadn't been there yet, but suddenly he's up to 3 home runs, and it's all coming together for TJ Friedl. It looks like it's playing out exactly as I hoped, and yet his roster rate is still kind of lagging. It's around 70% now, but TJ Friedl's been one of the, and this happens a lot of times with hitters, with the weekly sleeper hitters or streamer hitters, if you want to call them that, where I just keep having to feature the same guy over and over again because his roster rate is not rising fast enough. And so if he has great matchups and he's at home, TJ Friedl was very high on the sleeper hitters. If he had middling matchups and was on the road, he was still on the sleeper hitters, but he was lower. And I'm hoping with this 2-homer game, he can finally just remove himself from consideration, because I'm tired of writing about him every Thursday.
All right, Scott, the next question. Do you take TJ Friedl over either Kyle Stowers or Andy Pages, who are seemingly the hottest waiver wire outfielders in the past week or so?
Yeah, I've had him ranked ahead of those guys all year.
All right. All right, before we take our first break, just a reminder that we don't talk about prospects often on this podcast, but we do talk about them once per week on our shorter podcast, FBT Express. So if you want to hear about prospects, that episode will be out later today on Thursday. Make sure to follow and subscribe to FBT Express wherever you listen to podcasts. And thanks to those for watching us live. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Let's take a break, and we'll be back right after this quick commercial break. Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. News and notes. Hunter Greene left his start early due to a right groin strain. He'll undergo an MRI on Thursday. Terry Francona said Greene felt a grab, not a pop, while warming up in the 4th inning. And before leaving, he looked great again. 3 shutout innings, 6 strikeouts. The velocity was up yet again for Hunter Greene. And what do you know? This comes on the day that I finally moved him into my top 12 starting pitchers.
I moved him into my top 10, number 8, baby. Let's hope this doesn't lead to an IL stint. At least it is the groin and not something related to his arm. Not that a groin injury couldn't sideline him for multiple weeks. It could, but it wouldn't have the sort of cloud of doom hanging over it, the sword of Damocles. And that would be good. Yeah, he averaged 100, Hunter Greene, on his fastball today. After already, I don't feel like this has gotten enough attention. We've talked about the control, the fact that he was already one of the hardest throwers in the game, and his average velocity is up nearly 2 miles per hour this year, prior to the additional increase in this game. It's great. You can understand why Hunter Greene looks like a Cy Young contender now. But, and maybe this groin injury will put him on ice, and it'll take the pressure off his arm. If he was already having trouble staying healthy, averaging 97, how's it going to go averaging 99? That's the lingering question for Hunter Greene. Not enough to keep him out of my top 10 at this point, but enough to keep me in a state of genuine, kind of perpetual concern.
Yeah, I think the biggest concern, obviously this is if Hunter Greene had to get injured, and he didn't. It's not how it works. But if he had to get injured, you'd rather it be a groin than any kind of arm injury. But the concern would be that it just knocks him off track, right? That he is fine. He's able to pitch through it, but throws the kinetic chain off a little bit. Even if he's healthy, it's just not quite there, and he just loses something, right? That would be the concern here. And it's a minor concern. Until we see what he looks like. And, frankly, as good as he's been, I would rather them just put him on the IL and just make sure that he gets 15 days off and comes back at 100%. I would rather that than he come back at 97% and potentially screw something up, right? Because he's been so good. He's been so dominant in a way that looks sustainable, where last year, I think we had some questions about how sustainable the performance was, because if you remember, his strikeout rate was actually down last year and his walk rate was up. And he had this breakout because he became elite at limiting hard contact. Well, this year, all of a sudden, his command the control is the best it's ever been. His strikeout rate's way up. And that happened at the end of last season.
We saw kind of two versions of Hunter Greene last year, to be fair.
It was the last 11 starts, the walk rate was way lower. His command has been really good for the last 3 months that he's pitched. And it might just be that that's what he is now. I would rather they give him the extra time off to make sure that there's nothing here, even if all the testing comes back fine. And he said he's going to have an MRI on Thursday to confirm.
So the best case scenario, grade 1 or lower groin strain, put him on the IL for 15 days. Is that kind of what you're presenting? Well, I guess the best case scenario is it was cramping. It's nothing wrong at all.
Yeah.
But that seems like an unlikely one.
I would rather, given the stakes, they take every precaution possible. Yes, personally. That's not up to me. I'm not the trainer. Yeah. I'm not Hunter Greene. That would be my preference.
Joe Ryan has been scratched from Thursday's start due to an illness. Hopefully he is clear to start at some point this weekend. William Contreras was out of the lineup Wednesday after x-rays revealed a fractured middle finger on his left hand. And apparently he plans to play through the injury, which doesn't sound great. Might explain why he's off to the slow start. I don't think there's anything actionable. I mean, it's not like you're going to move him down the rankings, right? Who would you move ahead of William Contreras?
Well, Adley Rutschman's off to his own bad start.
Cal Raleigh would be the guy, but
yeah,
but I'm not going to.
That would be like a 70 spot jump in the overall rankings from the preseason, which maybe it's justified, but I feel like we know who Cal Raleigh is. It's probably just a hot streak.
I don't. Obviously, it's not like a break with a some kind of displacement or anything that would require its own medical intervention. And he's been playing with it for a while. I would think left-handed, for right-handed guy, left hand, the biggest concern would actually be catching, absorbing the shock on that finger over and over again. But hitting-wise, like, I don't even know that you really need to have that left middle finger on your weaker hand. That would be even on the bat, like all the strength's coming from the top hand. It's kind of just there to add stability. I don't even know that you need it. So I don't think
I'm gonna say you need it. I don't think you do. I don't think they should amputate. I think that would be an overreaction.
I'm just saying I don't think look, we'll know when we know, but I'm not really worried about it impacting his hitting or that it's an explanation for a slow start or anything like that.
I think it could be, right? Like, I think it's unknowable. Like, my stance was before this news, I was not at all concerned about William Contreras. I was very confident that he was going to be who he is. Now, I'm a little bit concerned. And it's enough that, like, you guys don't do overall rankings in season, but I do the trade values chart. I am going to drop him closer to the rest of the position because he's been kind of a clear standout in the trade values the first 7 weeks into the season now. I think this drags him back towards Adley Rutschman and Salvador Perez and Yainer Diaz and Cal Raleigh. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yordan Alvarez has been diagnosed with a muscle strain on the top of his right hand and is hoping to be activated when first eligible on May 13th. Zach Eflin has been cleared to return and will start this weekend against the Twins. The Orioles also hope that Tyler O'Neill will return this weekend as well. Some Dodgers updates. Teoscar Hernandez, who went on the IL with a left adductor strain, hopes to return in 2 weeks. Tyler Glasnow will resume playing catch on Friday. Blake Snell will start playing catch Friday as well. And Clayton Kershaw's next rehab start on Sunday might be his last before rejoining the Dodgers. Any interest in Clayton Kershaw, who is 31% rostered?
There's some interest. My expectations are low because we kind of went down this road with him last year, and it was the first time it didn't pay off. Mm-hmm. He kind of just magically returned from whatever injury and looked like more or less the same guy, at least a very good pitcher for fantasy until last year. But he's getting older. The injuries have accumulated. His velocity was down a bit more last year, and it's down even more on his rehab assignment. He's like averaging 87 on his fastball now. So I would say the odds are against Clayton Kershaw being an impact pitcher at this point, but he's Clayton Kershaw, and he's overcome tremendous odds before, and he obviously has the best supporting cast in baseball. So starting pitcher, it's been a difficult position to fill off the waiver wire recently. I think if you have a spot to play with, certainly if you have an IL spot to play with, it's not a bad idea to take a flyer on Kershaw, see where it goes.
Yeah. I did get a request to rank all the IL pitchers, and Scott actually had an IL stash rankings article come out earlier this week. And so I will quickly read off some of those names. Scott, if anything has changed for you, feel free to point it out. But those IL stash rankings: Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Spencer Strider, Shota Imanaga, Tyler Glasnow, and Blake Snell. Those are the names up top. Next up, we have Yuri Perez, Shane McClanahan, Zach Eflin, Sean Manaea, Yu Darvish, and Ryan Weathers. And then the next group: Brandon Woodruff, Spencer Arrighetti, Grayson Rodriguez, Jared Jones, Shane Bieber. I don't know if you had Kershaw there. Maybe he was even lower than that.
Kershaw's even lower, yeah. So you were just naming the pitchers, obviously.
Yeah.
Bieber was 31 on the overall list, and Kershaw's 40.
Okay. Apparently, Jazz Chisholm revealed that he is actually dealing with 3 separate tears in the oblique, and that kind of makes me feel like he's not going to be back in 4 to 6 weeks like they are hoping. So I hope I'm wrong, but that doesn't sound pretty good.
3 tears should heal at roughly the same rate as 1, right?
I don't know if that's how that works. I don't know. JT Realmuto was removed after fouling a ball off his left foot. Noelvi Marte was placed in the IL with a grade 2 left oblique strain.
That sucks.
It does, because he was obviously hitting recently. The Reds started Santiago Espinal at third base on Wednesday. Shane McClanahan is playing catch from 60 feet. And I mentioned Brandon Woodruff earlier. It sounds like he is close to rejoining the Brewers. He's completed 5 innings in each of his last 3 rehab outings, but his velocity remains way down as well. He's coming back from shoulder surgery, major shoulder surgery, and his velocity is down around 3 miles per hour on all of his pitches. So I just don't know how effective he's going to be.
That torn capsule is a difficult injury to make it all the way back from. In fact, there are pretty few pitchers have. And certainly not as old as Woodruff is. It's almost 3 miles per hour, the drop on his average velocity. He's managed to put together a good ERA across the 5 rehab starts, but none of the other numbers look that good. And you'll notice, I mean, you just read off the names. Woodruff, given how close he is to returning, may have seemed surprisingly low on that list of injury stashes to people. Well, that's why my expectations for him are pretty low. Similar to Kershaw. I mean, he's had a great career. He's going to get a chance on a pretty good team. But I don't think we're going to see the Brandon Woodruff of old, however he turns out.
The key distinction between Kershaw and Woodruff for me, and I felt like Woodruff has been over-rostered all season long. He's been really highly rostered throughout. And the big distinction for me is that, I mean, look, it's unfair to compare anyone to Clayton Kershaw. Clayton Kershaw is the best pitcher since Pedro Martinez, at least, right?
Depends what you mean by best. He had some of the best peak seasons since Pedro Martinez.
Yeah, sure. He has, I think, the lowest ERA for a career of any pitcher since like integration, maybe among starters. It's something wild like that. But either way, sure. We can quibble about it. He's an all-time great, first ballot Hall of Famer. Should be
generational talent. Yeah.
Brandon Woodruff was very good. But I think the key distinction is I can envision a world where Clayton Kershaw doesn't have a good fastball but gets by, because we've seen that over the last 4 years, really, where he's hit sitting like 90, 80, 89, 90 miles an hour, but that curveball, the slider is still good. The command is excellent. My expectations are pretty low for Clayton Kershaw, but Woodruff was so fastball reliant. You know, it was very much like Brian Wu. Actually, that's a really good comp for what Brian Wu is now, or what Brandon Woodruff used to be, where great four-seamer that he got a lot of whiffs with up in the zone, kind of had to rely on that through a really good sinker as well. Losing 3 miles per hour, that's not a death knell. That doesn't mean he can't be good. I think it's going to make it a really, really up-road battle for him, because I just don't know if the rest of his arsenal is good enough to pick it up if the fastball is hittable.
The White Sox put Andrew Benintendi on the IL with a left calf strain. The Dodgers placed Evan Phillips on the IL due to right forearm discomfort. The Blue Jays optioned Alan Rodin to AAA and then recalled Jonathan Clase, who had 15 steals in the minors. So in the deepest leagues, AL only if you need speed. That's Jonathan Clase. And we're getting breaking news. The Orioles have traded for Luis F. Castillo, which is just
probably not even worth mentioning.
No, I understand. It's just when it came across the timeline, it's like everyone's freaking out. Whoa, Luis Castillo to the Orioles. And yeah, you forget.
That's a good bet.
Luis Castillos on the Mariners. They distinguished them with the middle initial. This is not the Luis Castillo who's been a mainstay for like the past decade. This is the other one that's not very good. So
it's kind of sad that they're breaking them up, you know?
Hopefully Mike Elias knew what he was doing.
I just think it's very funny. I think that's a good bit, and I hope they did it on purpose.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, everyone's mad at us. Everyone thinks we stink. Let's have a chuckle. Let's trade for Luis Castillo.
I guess this is kind of notes related, but I wanted to mention Lawrence Butler getting moved down in the Athletics lineup. Moved down to sixth in the lineup here. And with Jacob Wilson leading off versus a right-handed pitcher, Butler responded by hitting his 6th home run of the season, but he's also batting .240 with a .717 OPS. Jacob Wilson went 4 for 5 with 2 doubles. He's hitting .357 on the season, .859 OPS. So I don't know if this is something that will just be a permanent fixture in the Athletics lineup, but I thought it was notable.
I mean, I've been wondering where people are on Lawrence Butler, because the quality of contact has been really poor so far this season.
92 mile per hour average, 111.
That's the
max.
one. That's the one that's been good. But like the barrel rate, the XBA, XWOBA on contact has all collapsed from last season. It's all well below average.
I feel like those are more reflections of the moment, though, than skill level. I mean, average and max both in the top quarter of the league, exit velocities. So, I mean, I haven't been worried. Even with him being coldish, it's still a near 30 pace he's on.
I mean, coldish, 717 OPS is bad.
It's still a near 30 pace. Yeah, he's been coldish. Like, yeah, when you're cold this early in the season, your OPS isn't going to look good. Yeah. Your batting average isn't going to look good. Your OPS isn't going to look good. But if the underlying characteristics are there, he's still stealing bases. He's still finding ways to hit home runs at a decent clip. I'm taking these as encouraging signs. Like, he didn't turn back into a pumpkin. He's just cold.
The really weird thing is the sprint speed is 24th percentile. That's just weird. Like, I just wonder if he's like not 100% healthy and he's just been playing through something. That's the weird thing.
It was 58 last year. So yeah, it's a notable drop.
It feels like maybe he's trying too hard to sell out for power. The fly ball rate is up quite a bit this season. The line drive rate is down a lot, which could explain why the batting average and the XBA is down as much as it is for Lawrence Butler here. But
not pulling the ball very well in the air either.
It's at least notable, right? Like, it's on the Athletics radar.
Yeah, I'm just wondering.
It's on their radar enough where they moved him down in the lineup. So yeah, let's see where it goes. But yeah, I mean, the power and speed, obviously you'll take that, but we do need better batting average and OBP from Lawrence Butler. Should you sell high on these pitchers? And I am going to get myself in trouble with this one, but I will just make the case. Max Fried continues to dominate. 7 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts to 0 walks. He has been tremendous. There is no doubt about it. He has allowed 2 earned runs or fewer in all 8 of his starts. He has a 1.05 ERA and a .91 whip, but this is not going to remain. So I'm just like, this is the most clear, like, okay, if you can sell him for the moon, try it before, there will be some regression. I'll just bring up, the forearm stuff the past couple of years. Like, it's not impossible that something can happen here. I don't want that to happen, obviously. But in the most strictest sense, like, if you want to sell high on Max Fried for, a top 3 round player, you can try. I'll just throw it out there.
Yeah. I mean, we all have him in our top 15 rest of season. I'm noticing now, top 15 starting pitchers. So, part of that is others have kind of eliminated themselves from top 15 consideration, like Schwellenbach and of course, Logan Gilbert getting hurt and Shota Imanaga getting hurt, etc. But Fried, like, this isn't an unfamiliar place for Fried in the rankings. And I think given the way all the top 15 candidates, how things have shaken out for them, Fried absolutely deserves to be in there. But that's top 15. That's not top 5. And I think if you could trade him more like a top 5 guy, absolutely. I expect that ERA to be between 275 and 325 in the end.
That's the question for me, is that this was a guy who people were weirdly cold on coming into the season. Like, he was probably like the number 25 starting pitcher, which always felt low to me. And there were a lot of drafts where he would last until like the 9th or 10th round in some 12-team leagues. People just didn't have any excitement about Fried. So while I get the idea behind selling high on him, I do wonder if, like, you were the person who drafted him. So clearly you were the high guy on Max Fried coming in. You were the one who wasn't as skeptical as everyone else, at least. And has the rest of the community gone from, I don't really care, Max Fried's not that good, he's just a solid veteran innings eater, right? Like, I think that's what people thought about him. Has that shifted enough based on 8 starts? Maybe.
I think you overestimate
That's very
how
possible.
analytical
Yes.
most people who play fantasy baseball are.
No,
I think
I will grant
just based
that,
on
sure.
most of the comments we get of the knee-jerk reactions to the latest performance. Max Fried's been the number one pitcher in fantasy. He's got an ERA just above 1, right?
Yeah, they're talking about him as like a Cy Young candidate.
Yeah, I think
he's a Cy Young candidate. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if Max Fried stays healthy and he ends up in the top 5 in Cy Young in any given year, I wouldn't be surprised by that. He's
I don't know.
Elite at run prevention.
Yeah, no, he could win Cy Young, but he's not going to do it with the kind of strikeout rate that makes for a true fantasy stud in the truest sense, like the kind of return Frank is saying he could fetch right now.
Yeah, I do think there is a bit of a Yankees effect here too. It's just like whatever, they're always in the news, they're playing in big games, whatever. So I don't know, find a Yankee fan in your league and try and take advantage if you can. What about Sonny Gray, who had one of his best starts of the season against the Pirates? 7 shutout innings, 8 strikeouts. Oddly enough, only 7 whiffs on 89 pitches here. There were some things that stood out to me a little weird in Sonny Gray's profile. The ground ball rate is down this year. Entering the start, he had a 4.78 expected ERA, and his swinging strike rate is down a little bit as well. Now, we know spring training, he was awful, and he talked about had a shot in his forearm, I think it was, earlier in the offseason, so maybe that explained the slow start. But I just wonder, aloud, do you guys think Sonny Gray is a sell high or just totally fine SP3?
He had been pretty shaky leading up to this, hadn't he?
I just wonder if you could sell off of his best start of the season.
I don't think you could, because the overall, still 3.50 ERA overall.
People were not in on Sonny Gray coming into the season. It's not like Sonny Gray was someone people were excited to draft. The opposite.
Well, certainly not the last week or two, the peak of draft season, because he was. There were the concerns over his velocity in spring training, and there was even talk of an injury at one point, right? Well,
we learned, I think, he was sick, and then we also learned that he had. I don't think we had heard that he had was it a PRP injection in his forearm when he had a forearm injury last September?
It was something like that that came out. He had it after the season or towards the end. But we didn't learn that until spring training of this year, which was crazy.
So I just don't think he's going to have much value in the trade market. I think it's much less likely you get a positive return on investment on selling Gray than Fried. But it's also worth saying that this is a guy who had a forearm injury last year.
Yeah.
At the end of the season. So it's entirely possible that things fall apart for him. That's kind of, that wouldn't be shocking at all.
Yeah. And I'm not saying you have to sell these players by any means. I'm just kind of presenting it as a possibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, this is a bad way. This doesn't lead to much of a podcast discussion, but if you could get Sonny Gray for if you could trade Sonny Gray for any of the pitchers I rank ahead of Sonny Gray, then I'd do that. Would you
rather have Shane Baz or Sonny Gray?
Well, yesterday I would have said Shane Baz. Today I'm probably going to say Sonny Gray.
Even earlier today when I updated the rankings, I had Gray ahead of Shane Baz. So I would, I have Sonny Gray right at 30. So
yeah, you have Sonny Gray way higher than I do.
Yeah, I've got him 34, so I'm a little behind you, at least.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm 48.
You hate Sonny Gray.
Apparently.
What did Sonny Gray do to you? Jeez.
Yeah,
I don't know. The innings aren't usually there. The ERA is not usually great.
I mean,
strikeouts are hit or miss. He's fine. I
think
he's
also he's a weird pitcher. This is the thing that's tough about analyzing Sonny Gray in any context is
it's been the bane of my existence.
He's just a different pitcher every year almost.
Yeah.
Last year it was what? 31% strikeout rate?
You guys want to touch him.
He's a rock solid SP3.
I think so, yeah.
You guys weren't touching him during that period where everybe was scared of him.
No.
So I kept drafting him because you guys won it.
Once that news came out, I already had a few shares too, and I have a lot of Sonny Gray, but once that came out, I was like, No more. I've got to limit my exposure after hearing that. All right, let's talk about Kodai Senga, who was effectively wild at the D-backs. 6 shutout innings, 5 walks to 4 strikeouts, only 7 whiffs on 89 pitches. And, the walks are really starting to creep up now. He has 8 walks combined in his last 2 outings here. He's managed a 1.16 ERA, 1.16 whip. It's interesting because I think obviously, yes, you can try and sell high on him. But like we talked about with the other 2, Chris, it's like nobody really wanted to draft Kodai Senga in the offseason. So I don't really know if you can sell high on him.
I will say this feels like the most true sell high, because this is actually one. A lot of the times we do the sell high conversation, we always couch it with like sell high. We make a point to emphasize, put italics, underline, under high. Senga does feel like one where the bottom could just totally fall out at any point. The stuff doesn't look nearly as good. His fastball velocity down 1 mile per hour from where it was in 2023. Forkball still looks very good, but hasn't been quite as dominant as a swing and miss pitch as it was in 2023. The cutter doesn't look quite as good either. I don't know. I feel like there's a chance Kodai Senga actually does turn into a pumpkin moving forward, because the control's always been bad, and I think it still is, and the strikeouts just have not been there. So yeah, I think there's a chance Kodai Senga is not a must roster pitcher at some point this season. I'm not saying he's there or that you should drop him, but I think that's a realistic possibility.
I'm with you every week when I'm updating my rankings, doing my thorough 8-hour update or however long it takes. I look at Kodai Senga's ERA and I'm like, man, I got to get him inside the top 40, don't I? And then every week I'm like, no, I really don't. Yeah, 1.16 ERA for Kodai Senga, but oof.
Yeah. And I think the next guy's in a similar category.
His xFIP's 394. Maybe we should just look at xFIPs more. I don't know. xERA and FIP are better, but not near 1.16, obviously.
Let's talk about Tyler Mahle, who did not have a single strikeout at the Red Sox. 5 innings, 2 runs, 1 walk. He allowed 2 homers in the start, only 4 whiffs on 88 pitches. He has either 1 strikeout or 0 in 2 of his last 3 outings. I don't know if you can, but man, if anyone in your league just sees a 1.48 ERA, 0.98 whip, sell Tyler Mahle for a top 50 starting pitcher or top 100 hitter or anything like that.
So earlier this week on Monday, I wrote about a few standouts that may be fake outs. Ones I wasn't buying into. It included Geraldo Perdomo. It included a few other guys I won't name because we don't need to go down that road again. It included Tyler Mahle, though. He was the one starting pitcher on there. And he was interesting at first because he was getting a lot of whiffs with his fastball, which was also true during that great 2021 season with the Reds. And it had a high induced vertical break. It still does, but the whiffs have totally dried up on it. And 0 strikeouts in this one. I think 2 turns ago, didn't he have just 1 strikeout, Tyler Mahle?
Yeah.
So he is on dangerous footing right now. And I think if you can get anything that you for sure won't be dropping in the next foreseeable future, then you should.
I agree with that. Even like Gavin Williams, who I'm pretty out on. I think I'd rather have him than Tyler Mahle in the long run. Obviously, Mahle more useful right now because things are going well, but it definitely feels like things are going to go wrong for Mahle in short order.
All right, let's take our final break, and when we return, we'll talk waiver wire players from Wednesday's action right after this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. Waiver wire hitters from Wednesday. We already spoke about TJ Friedl. Dylan Moore has come off the IL and just keeps on running, 2 for 4 with his 7th steal. He has a steal in each game since returning. He's hitting .295, .896 OPS. Does feel like he's just really hot to start the season. 65% rostered with 4 different position eligibilities. Should that be higher for Dylan Moore? 65%.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's probably right, because I do think he needs to be rostered in all roto leagues with that kind of versatility. But I don't see much reason to roster him in head-to-head leagues, which tend to have the shallower rosters, only 3 outfielders, no middle infield, et cetera, et cetera. I do think there may be something to this breakout. I mean, the K rate is significantly lower for Dylan Moore. It always run very high, and the fly ball rate was also ridiculously high for him, which a high fly ball rate can be a good thing, but there's diminishing returns with that. If it gets so high, particularly with a high strikeout rate, you're going to be a 198 hitter. And that's basically what Dylan Moore was. He also has a really good hitting coach now. I have long, even before the 15 years or however long he was the Braves hitting coach, back when he was with the Royals, I thought Kevin Seitzer was one of the best. And he presided over a record-setting offense in 2023. A lot of Mariners hitters who we didn't think much of are suddenly performing well. And Dylan Moore is one of them. I'm not saying it's a for sure breakout. And I think the odds are against it being a breakout given his track record, but I'm at least open to the idea that Dylan Moore could sustain career best production.
Worth mentioning, quadruple eligible in points league, sextuple eligible in roto leagues, which is not a term we get to use very often. So that's fun. Which gives him like a tiebreaker if you have a similar option on waivers or on your roster. But I just don't think he's very useful in points, even with the 4 position eligibility.
How would you guys rank these 4 hitters that are really just utility options? I mean, you could move them all around a bunch of different positions. Dylan Moore, Willie Castro, Josh Smith, and Javier Baez. How would you rank those 4?
Dylan Moore. I guess I got to give the edge to Smith over Castro right now. Yeah. And then who was the 4th one?
Javier Baez.
Javier Baez.
Yeah. I know he had another good game today, but I don't really see it with Baez.
Yeah, the quality of contact stuff is not there. Yeah.
I do.
The pull air rate is higher for Baez.
I want it to work out. I mean,
yeah.
The underlying numbers are not great, but I am rooting for him. I want it to work out. Yeah. Speaking of that game, on the other side of the Tigers was the Rockies, who we got some big games from. Ryan McMahon and Michael Toglia. McMahon 4 for 4 with his 4th home run. Michael Toglia 3 for 4 with 2 doubles and his 4th home run. Both of these gentlemen are hitting under 220 on the season. So I don't think there's anything yet, but maybe at some point. Any interest? Ryan McMahon, Michael Toglia?
We know who McMahon is, right?
Yeah.
Not a lot of mystery there.
I'm more interested in Toglia.
Yeah, there's more upside there. First base has obviously been an abundant position this year, and so I don't think many people are searching for more options, but somebody out there might be. I would say if somebody dropped Ryan Mountcastle in your league, I'd still find him more interesting than Toglia. And I know he's pretty widely available at this point. But yeah, I mean, Toglia could go on a home run binge. We saw it happen last year.
All right. 3 names in deeper leagues. Gabriel Arias, 4 for 5 with a double. Yohan Moncada, he's been back for 2 games. He has homered in 2 games. And then Zach DeZenzo, 1 for 2 with 2 walks, a double, and 2 runs. I think there might be a player there. I'm excited for him to get more playing time, hopefully, with the Astros. But any interest in those 3 in deeper leagues? Arias, Moncada, and DeZenzo.
I can't, Arias, there have been signs that there's some real underlying improvement here. He was a big bat speed gainer this spring that has carried over. Quality of contact has been a little better. I think he set a new max exit velo in spring. He might have already topped that as well. So I don't think there's nothing there, but it's not someone that I think should be rostered in most leagues. And then Moncada, I have no idea.
What's dead may never die, Chris.
28% roster feels way too high.
Yeah, I don't know how.
Maybe maybe he's healthy and it's just been held back by injuries for the last half decade, but he hasn't been any good since 2019. leave. So it's pretty unlikely. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but there's no evidence for it.
Completely agree. I mean, it's the same Javier Baez thing. Like, I'm rooting for the guy. I want him to figure it out, but bet against it, I would say. Waiver wire pitchers, Michael Wacha was great against the White Sox, 7 shutout innings with 5 strikeouts. And if this is correct, looks like he might be in line for 2 starts next week against the Cardinals and at the Astros. And then Gunnar Hoagland was solid in his second outing, this time against the Mariners. 5 1/3, 2 runs, only 3 strikeouts, but had 13 whiffs on 99 pitches. He threw a lot more sweepers, and that sweeper looked awesome.
It wasn't even there really the first start. You say he threw a lot more. He threw like 3 in his first start.
Yeah, it was all fastball and changeup the first start, right?
Yeah.
So apparently he has this sweeper to go along with a fastball that has 20 inches of induced vertical break.
And it didn't get nearly as many whiffs this time, but the sweeper was making up for it. So I remain interested in Hoagland. I'm perplexed, but interested. Just taking it start by start. I think you have to be. And then Wacha, he seems so underwhelming at first. Now he's 3 straight quality starts, down to a 2.98 ERA, 1.15 WHIP. He probably just needs to be rostered regardless of 2-start status next week. If he's below 80% rostered, I imagine he'll be number 1 on the sleeper pitchers list for me.
I don't think so.
He's over it now? Or you think there's somebody better?
We're talking about Gunnar Hoagland, right?
No, we're talking about Wacha.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. You're right. Okay. I zoned out for a second. Thought you were still talking about Gunnar Hoagland. He's got the Dodgers next week. That's that's the biggest hurdle towards making him worth adding. Wacha, he just feels under rostered. I don't really have a good explanation for why it is. He's not exciting. Never has been. But it's like
ERA is always low 3s.
Yeah, it's been like a 3.30 ERA like 4 years in a row. So at some point, that's just what he is. He's boring, but if you've got Cease or Greene and you're a little worried and you've got a roster spot to play with, go add Michael Wacha as a stabilizer.
You know what it is? And this is dumb, but I'm sure this is part of it. 1-4 record coming into this start for Michael Wacha. If that was a 4-1 record, he'd be rostered everywhere.
Yeah, probably.
How would you guys rank Gunnar Hoagland, AJ Smith-Shawver, Matthew Liberatore, and Andrew Abbott? Those are kind of the names that have popped up most in the past, handful of days here. But it's Hoagland, Liberatore, Abbott, and AJ Smith-Shawver.
What's Liberatore up to now? Because I was looking
65%, I think.
Okay, that's so Liberatore, Hoagland, Wacha, and who?
No Wacha. AJ Smith-Shawver and Andrew Abbott.
All right, I got my order.
All right.
Smith-Shawver, Liberatore. I'm struggling with the last 2. I still really don't believe in Abbott. I'm gonna say Hoagland then Abbott.
I think I'd go Liberatore over AJ Smith-Shawver, but I think the order is right otherwise.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like Liberatore at the top of that group as well. Some names in deeper leagues here. Michael Soroka returned with a solid outing against the Guardians. 5+ innings, 4 runs, 8 strikeouts. The 4 runs, not great. He actually had 5 shutout and then came out for the 6th, and everything kind of unraveled after that. Landon Knack pitched well at the Marlins. 5 shutout, 5 strikeouts. Not sure if he'll stick around for another start. Clayton Kershaw could be back. And then Valente Belloso. I just wanted to mention that 5 1/3 shutout, 7 strikeouts against the Dodgers. So good start. And he looked completely different. Like, threw a new splitter. His velocity was up in the start. I don't know if it means anything. It probably doesn't, but just kind of surprised me.
I'll be honest, I didn't look that hard at him because he's Valente Belloso. So you're kind of presenting me with brand new information here. I don't know. I'll look if he has another good start next time out. I'll look into it more.
I will say I was watching it and I didn't see anything that looked super outstanding from him. So I'm not rushing out to add.
I don't know if you mentioned it, but the AAA numbers were 140 ERA, 12% swinging strike rate, which is not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, outside of NL only leagues, I don't think you need to look into Beozo yet, but we'll see what happens next time out.
Hey, I started him in the Dynasty League, which is a 2014 league.
Yeah.
Yeah. With Soroka, I'll just mention Sparp. So
Mhm.
name to pay attention to in points leagues. Might line up for 2 starts next week at the Braves, at the Orioles. Probably don't want to do it, but he is a name to watch.
It's fine in points leagues, yeah.
What do we do with these starting pitchers? Hold or drop at this point? Grant Holmes, I mean, coming off that strong start against the Dodgers and then takes a step back here against the Reds, 5 1/3, 7 hits, 4 runs, 5 strikeouts. It's just been up and down season, mostly down if we're being honest. And then Yusei Kikuchi, a strong outing against the Blue Jays, 6 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts, 11 whiffs on 91 pitches, but it's a 146 whip. Underlying numbers don't look great.
Frank, this was a big one for Kikuchi because I think it was as simple. His struggles early this year were as simple as he just wasn't throwing as hard as last year, and across the board, all the pitches. He was throwing the slider enough. Remember, that was the breakthrough in Houston, and he actually threw the slider even more than that in this start, 46% of the time, I believe it was. We'd be happy with 35% on that pitch for Kikuchi, but the velocity was down on everything. Well, suddenly, velocity back to last year across the board in this start, and he has his best start of the season. So I don't know if it's just back permanently, and Kikuchi's back to throwing that hard again, averaging, what is it on his fastball, like 95?
Yeah, it was 95.2. It was half, like 0.3 miles per hour down from last year.
Yeah, so basically got all the way back, and he got great results. So that's encouraging, I think. And we'll see what happens next time out for him.
The slider just still wasn't that great, though. I mean, it had 3 whiffs, 18% whiff rate. I don't know.
I think the biggest thing is his arm angle is still lower than it was last year. So he's getting more run on the 4-seamer as opposed to rise, and he's not really getting as much sweep on the slider. So I remain a little discouraged by Kikuchi overall, which, it's kind of the story of his career, is being mostly discouraged and then getting bought in for a few months. So there will probably be a couple of months where he's really good and we'll buy in, and then he'll change something and it won't work, and we'll be back to square one. He's a very, very frustrating pitcher. Grant Holmes, I'm kind of out. I'm not saying I'm dropping him across the board, but I just don't really expect big things. I think his fastball command is not very good. The curveball that looked really, really good last year in somewhat limited sample size was new for him, and it has not played nearly as well so far this season. So I'm pretty discouraged by what we're seeing from Grant Holmes. And
as long as he keeps getting whiffs at a high rate with that slider, because it was 8 this time, I believe it was 9 last time. I'm going to give him a chance. Like, I'm going to give him a chance over like a Gunnar Hoagland or somebody I could reasonably pick up.
See, I think he's right in that. I think he's just in that same range. I think he's like, if you want to put him ahead of Hoagland and I'm blanking on the other guys we were talking about, Liberator and but like I think I'd rather have Liberator at this point. I think he's been more impressive.
I moved Liberator right up next to Grant Holmes. Like, they're back to back.
Yeah, they're close for me too. But I can't help but be encouraged, because the main thing I was discouraged about early on with Holmes is, well, what happened to all the whiffs he was getting last year, and suddenly they're back. And it's not everything, but it's the single most important thing. Yeah, I would say.
And they're on the slider. He just, like, looking at his individual pitch characteristics, it feels like he's just a one-pitch pitcher right now. Like, he has the slider working, but last year the fastball and the curve were much better. And maybe that's just because we saw him in smaller samples and like he was a relief pitcher. But those 2 pitches just haven't been as good this year. So
they haven't yet.
Yeah.
But I think if you have that one amazing pitch to work with, and it's looked amazing recently, and the alternative part of this is just what else is out there, and for the most part, it's not that exciting. I would take that slider for Holmes being more exciting than the high induced vertical break on Gunnar Hoagland's fastball.
But yeah, both are holds for you right now, right? Kikuchi and
Holmes and Kikuchi.
Holmes.
Ideally, I did have to drop Kikuchi in a shallower league where I had a lot of other good pitchers. I think I dropped him for like Max Meyer, so it was a shallow league. But
yeah, I think both are in that same range where like I want to hold them, but in a shallow enough league, I think it's fine to drop them.
All right, some leftovers here, and starting with hitters, Jeremy Pena quietly has had a nice season, 2 for 5 with his 5th home run, added 4 RBI, consistently leading off for the Astros. New York Sluggers coming alive, Juan Soto, 2 for 4 with a double dong, and in May, he's hitting .346 with 4 home runs and a 1340 OPS. Cody Bellinger, last 8 games, hitting .286 with 3 homers and a steal. And then some other names, CJ Abrams, 3 for 6 with his 8th stolen base. Freddie Freeman just will not stop hitting, 3 for 4 with a triple and 4 RBI. Bregman, great start with the Red Sox, hit his 9th home run. Willie Abreu continues his breakout season, added 2 homers here. Trey Turner hit a home run, and good to see because the power has been lacking early on. Jackson Merrill back with a nice game, 2 for 4 with his 4th homer. And Byron Buxton has homered in 3 straight, and he is on an absolute heater right now. Anything to add? Any names stand out?
Love what we're seeing from CJ Abrams so far, which, wasn't a guarantee after the way his season ended last year. I will also point out that I was looking at last year's April stats, and I think he was 12th in the league in WOBA, and like the underlying numbers backed it up. And obviously he didn't end up doing that. So, there's some concern that remains the case for him, but plate discipline looks a little better across the board. He's hitting the ball to the pull side in the air more often. That pulled air rate up from 22% last year to 26% this year. And his expected numbers look phenomenal. I almost called him JJ Abrams.
Their names are so close.
Yeah, CJ Abrams, not the lens flare guy.
I'm surprised it doesn't come up more often, to be honest.
I think we're just all still trying to forget the rise of Skywalker is why. But yeah, CJ Abrams looks phenomenal, which was not a guarantee after the way last season ended. So I'm really happy to see that. And yeah, Pena, I don't know. He looks great. The underlying numbers are really good. Expected batting average is like 290. Which is surprising for him. So I don't know how real that is, but obviously hitting at the top of that lineup certainly going to help. Jeremy Pena.
Jeremy Pena, yeah.
Oh, I didn't see him on the list here.
Yeah.
I got a couple guys I want to talk about here.
Talk about him.
If you don't mind. So Alex Bregman.
Monster. He's been so good.
He had obviously 2024, 2023. He was fine, but it was disappointing. Lowest pull air rate of his career, about 21% those years, which is not a bad pull air rate in a vacuum, but it was bad for Alex Bregman and he got bad results. His pull air rate this year is the highest it's been since 2019. And you know what happened in 2019? Alex Bregman hit 41 home runs. Now, he's not going to hit 41 home runs because that was the height of the juice ball era also. But I think it explains a lot of what's going on right now, particularly since hitting the ball in the air to his pull side at his home park is going to mean it's hitting off the green monster, if not over it. Oh, yeah. And I think it's very encouraging. I've been really tempted to move him up to break into that elite 4 at third base, break the wall there. Move Alex Bregman into it. But I haven't done it yet. But I'm tempted.
I mean, move him ahead of Jazz Chisholm for sure.
Yeah, Jazz Chisholm's obviously dropped out because of the injury.
But yeah, like
the other there's 4 apart from him.
Yeah,
like
Ramirez, Riley, Machado, and Devers.
Yeah.
I think he's still a step below those guys, but like, he was drafted behind Junior Caminero. Well, you'd obviously rather have Bregman at this point. He's doing what we hoped Caminero would do. I think you'd rather have him than Westberg, even if Westberg was healthy. So yeah, I'm I think he's kind of in a tier of his own at third base right now.
The other thing I wanted to say, I think Wilyer Abreu's a dude. I think he's legit. Now, sitting against left-handers is obviously going to constrain his value. He hasn't sat against every left-hander, it's worth noting, but he sat against most, and maybe that'll change at some point. I hope it does. But the walk rate is 91st percentile. His pull air rate is way up also, 27%. And the exit velocities are like, everything looks great. And I kind of liked him as a prospect. He was pretty productive down in the minors. So I always struggle with the platoon players, the platoon bats, because how much do you dock them for that? But in a vacuum, I really like Wilyer Abreu, and I think he's more or less legit.
Mm-hmm. Some pitching leftovers. We got great starts from Framber Valdez, Robbie Ray, Christopher Sanchez, and Jose Barrios had a weird start. I'm not going to call it a great one. He had 5 walks. He had 9 strikeouts, 18 whiffs on 89 pitches. Thank you, Angels. That will happen when you pitch against them. But anything to add on Barrios, Christopher Sanchez, Robbie Ray, Framber Valdez?
I don't understand how you get 9 strikeouts, 5 walks over 6 innings and only throw 89 pitches. Like, I actually don't understand how it was like every other plate appearance a 1 pitch at bat. Like, what happened there? That's just confusing. Robbie Ray, love to see him bouncing back. The three whiffs on the curveball. He wasn't really throwing the curve in his first few starts. He added this changeup and then just stopped throwing the curveball, which in a limited sample last year was really good for him. So I'm glad to see him incorporating that a little more over the past couple of starts. And then Christopher Sanchez. It's 2 starts since he came back from the forearm issue and 3 walks in both and less than a strikeout per inning in both, I believe. It's also like, well, if he had 1 fewer walk in each outing, it's 2 walks in 6 innings, and that's barely even worth commenting on. So I don't want to say it's a concern. It's just something I'm watching right now, I guess. I don't know how else to put that, right? Where I'm not worried about Christopher Sanchez, but that was always like, if things were going to go wrong for him without an injury, it would be that the walk rate climbs up like it used to. And that's just something that put my antenna up, I guess.
All right. There wasn't too much with bullpens here on Wednesday. Wanted to mention the Yankees because obviously it is a hot topic right now, but Luke Weaver entered with 1 out in the 8th inning, 2 runners on in a tie game to face the heart of the Padres lineup. He gave up an RBI single and then a sac fly. The Yankees are down 2 at that point. They tied it up in the bottom of the 8th inning, and then they go into extras where Devin Williams pitched in the 10th inning. The Manfred man on second base. He allowed a walk and a hit by pitch. He had bases loaded. He struck out 3 without allowing a run, and he picked up his first win. So it was, it was walking a tightrope. It was very scary as a fan watching that game, but he got through it, and he got whiffs. So I actually thought he looked pretty sharp. So
I do want to point out, I agree. That was encouraging for Devin Williams, and he may be getting close to regaining the role for the Yankees. I also wanted to point out that for the Tigers, Tommy Kahnle worked the 8th, put 3 runners on, got out of it, but it was a shaky 8th. Will Vest worked a scoreless 9th and 10th. They ended up winning. So advantage may be leaning a little more toward Vest again, but we may be doing this for a long time.
It's just going to be one of those like balance beams where it's just like, all right, 1 week it's this way, and it's just going to probably like even out as the course of the season goes on. To stream or not to stream on Thursday, not much. Jose Soriano up against the Blue Jays, Brian Bayo facing the Rangers, Jack Leiter at the Red Sox.
Soriano versus Toronto is fine. Bayo versus Texas is okay. I don't like any of them. I don't want to recommend any of them.
Works for me. I never do.
And then on Friday, we have Nick Martinez at the Astros. Jameson Taillon is at the Mets. Jose Quintana at the Rays.
Probably Quintana, especially it's left-hander. You get a Ronda out. That obviously worked out. Who was pitching against the Rays today? Some left-hander.
It was Christopher Sanchez who pitched.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Fetty could have a good start. Littell could have a good start. He's had a few.
Yeah, man,
I don't love any of these options.
You know what? Nick Martinez at the Astros with no Yordan Alvarez in the lineup.
Yeah, that's
Maybe,
probably my second choice. And I like the way his last start went. So it's more like I'm curious to see if he can build on it than I trust Nick Martinez again. But if you're forcing me to pick a second name after Quintana, I think I'd pick Martinez.
I agree. We are going to wrap there. For Scott and Chris, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.